On 5 News, after months of keeping stum, the Prime Minister finally tells us what Brexit actually means. Tough controls on immigration, new trade deals with Europe, but she had this warning too.
While I am sure a positive agreement can be reached, I am equally clear that no deal for Britain is better than a bad deal for Britain.
So, plenty of food for thought. What do voters make of it, though?
The reason I voted out was to get more control in this country, over the country, and what we spend our money on.
And if that means a hit to your back pocket?
I'm willing to take that.
What else did she have to say? We'll have all the details. Also tonight, the 16-year-old girl found dead in an alleyway. A teenage boy is questioned over her murder. A wide-open target, the holiday company accused of failing to properly warn British tourists of the terror risk they faced in Tunisia. We meet the young royals putting their heads together to tackle mental health. And just popping out for a stroll, the Florida holidaymakers who got a little too close to nature. Hello and welcome to 5 News. I'm Sian Williams. After months of relative silence, the Prime Minister set out her hopes for life outside the EU today. She confirmed that Britain is leaving the single market and that MPs will get a vote on any final deal. In a speech designed to shut up those who said there isn't a plan for Brexit, Theresa May said there would be no half-in, half-out deal. Instead, by leaving altogether, we'll be able to control immigration better and broker better trade agreements for Britain too. And she had a strong warning for the other 27 nations. Don't try to punish us. Our chief correspondent, Tessa Chapman, reports.
Is it a clean Brexit, Prime Minister?
Again and again she'd said Brexit means Brexit, but not a lot more. Today, Theresa May finally laid out some of the cards she's been holding close to her chest and began by addressing the immigration question.
We will get control of the number of people coming to Britain from the EU. Because while controlled immigration can bring great benefits, filling skill shortages, delivering public services, making British businesses the world beaters they often are, when the numbers get too high, public support for the system falters.
With lower immigration a priority, the consequences are at last clear.
What I am proposing cannot mean membership of the single market. European leaders have said many times that membership means accepting the 4 freedoms of goods, capital, services and people. And being out of the EU, but a member of the single market, would mean complying with the EU's rules and regulations that implement those freedoms without having a vote on what those rules and regulations are.
So membership is out of the question, but the Prime Minister promised to push for the freest possible trade deals with the EU and to sign new ones around the world.
Stronger, fairer, more united.
Listening in Thurrock in Essex, one of the places with the highest support for Brexit, what do voters make of it all? And is this the right Brexit, even if it hurts them financially?
The reason I voted out was to get more control in this country, over the country, and what we spend our money on.
And if that means a hit to your back pocket?
I'm willing to take that.
I think generally people around here are then more concerned about immigration than about staying in the single market?
Yeah, definitely 110%. And they're not too worried about how far it's going to hit us, maybe just because we're not thinking future ahead.
Well, it could fall flat on its face. It could, and we'll have to learn the hard way if it does. But at the end of the day, if you don't go for something, I'd rather try something and fail, and rather than never knowing the outcome.
But not everyone's so bullish.
And we're both in our 80s. We haven't got long. It probably won't matter, but for our children and our grandchildren, I think it's a worry.
Back in Westminster, the Prime Minister moved on, with a promise to the EU of close friendship, but a warning too, against punishing Britain with a harsh deal.
That would be an act of calamitous self-harm for the countries of Europe, and it would not be the act of a friend. Britain would not, indeed we could not, accept such an approach. And while I am confident that this scenario need never arise, while I am sure a positive agreement can be reached, I am equally clear that no deal for Britain is better than a bad deal for Britain.
So whatever happens, there'll be no more single market, no more customs union as we know it, no more huge annual payments to the EU. Parliament will get a vote, but on the deal, not on Brexit itself. And until then, the Prime Minister will be pulling her cards back close to her chest.
Well, Theresa May outlined no fewer than 12 priorities for negotiations today. One is taking back control of our legal system. She said leaving the European Union will mean that our laws will be made in Westminster, Edinburgh, Cardiff and Belfast. And there's the UK itself. She said it's important we face the future together, that a stronger Britain demands that we strengthen the precious union between the four nations. She said Britain will continue to play a key role in fighting terror. Our response, she said, cannot be to cooperate with one another less, but to work together more. And she looked at trading outside the EU with countries like China and the US. It is time for Britain to get out into the world and rediscover its role as a great global trading nation. Well, her speech has been criticised by some of her political opponents. Jeremy Corbyn said her approach to the single market seemed to be unclear and overly optimistic.
She has said leave the single market, then at the same time says she wants to have access to the single market. I'm not quite sure how that's going to go down in Europe. I think we have to have a deal that ensures we have access to the market, we have British jobs dependent on that market. That's what we'll be pushing for. Whether it's specifically this form of single market, I don't know. She seems to be wanting to have her cake and eat it.
Jeremy Corbyn. Well, the Prime Minister's speech appears to have gone down relatively well on the markets. After months of falling since the vote today, the pound jumped in value against every other main currency, 2.7% against the dollar and 1.8% against the euro. But what have Britain's businesses made of it? Olivia Kinsley has been to two in the West Midlands to find out.
Late morning at this air conditioning factory in Coventry, and while Theresa May makes her big Brexit speech, workers are focused on the task in hand.
I come to work, I do my job, and that's it. You know, government will do whatever they want to do. It don't really bother me what's going on. At the end of the day, as long as I still get paid.
But their boss Tim is paying close attention. So far, Brexit and the weak pound has boosted business, of which about 40% is EU exports. Leaving the single market could mean all sorts of complications.
In my mind, Theresa May is saying what she thinks people want to hear rather than necessarily what is productive for UK business. Without trade deals in place and given the time it will take to do that, it means more turbulence, more uncertainty, and when we're looking to actively seek new trade with EU countries, it's going to make it difficult for them to shake off the status quo and take that leap of faith and join us for long trading partnerships.
This pallet's just come from Oxford. It's going to Turkey, our customer's customer there.
In Nuneaton, David Hooper runs an international freight company. The crucial announcement for him today was that we could leave the customs union, which allows us to move our own and foreign goods within the EU without customs checks and charges. Leaving that union would make transporting goods more complicated.
At the moment, for example, if you ship to France or Germany, it goes on the back of a lorry and it goes straight there. Some of the more practical implications could be that businesses need to think about, well, what paperwork, what origin of goods.
What does that mean for the cost of things that we're buying?
It could mean that things go up in price. It could be that things take longer to arrive or get delivered because businesses will have to factor in these extra costs.
With Brexit, we now know what the government wants to achieve. How and if they can get there is far from clear. It leaves British business on an uncertain road ahead. Olivia Kinsley, 5 News.
Let's go back now to Tessa Chapman in Westminster. Yes, we did get the detail today. We heard Jeremy Corbyn's criticism of it. What else have people been saying politically here and abroad about these plans?
Well, there's been similar criticism from the Liberal Democrats. Nicola Sturgeon, SNP leader, Scotland's First Minister, did not mince her words. She said that Theresa May's plans would be economically catastrophic. But there have been warmer sentiments from Europe, actually. We've just had a statement from the German Foreign Minister who said, finally, more clarity. I'm pleased that Theresa May is seeking a positive and constructive partnership. We've heard from the EU Council President, Donald Tusk, who said this is a sad process, but at least we have now more realistic view of Britain's hopes. Now, we know Theresa May is going to speak to him and to European leaders in the next few days. We can't underestimate the importance of that. Whatever she hopes for, there will be 27 other countries around the negotiating table. We know this is not going to be straightforward.
Thanks, Tessa. Well, you'll find full details of Theresa May's plans on Brexit on our Facebook page. You just search for Channel 5 News. The collapse in the pound since the Brexit vote has helped push the cost of living to its highest for 2.5 years. Last month, inflation went up faster than expected to 1.6%. Analysts say the falling value of the pound is starting to push up the cost of food at the tills. And police investigating the disappearance of a woman more than a year ago say they found a body. 44-year-old Victoria Cherry was last seen in October 2015. Officers found the body at a house in Fulwood in Lancashire, having earlier arrested a man on suspicion of murder. An 18-year-old man is being questioned on suspicion of murdering a teenage girl whose body was found on a pathway in South Yorkshire. The girl, named as 16-year-old Leon Weeks, had been reported missing in Rotherham yesterday morning when she failed to return home. Today, people have been laying flowers at the scene where her body was discovered. Peter Lane reports.
Leonie's mum, standing in silence close to where the body was found. She laid a single flower at the police cordon, the crime scene just a couple of streets away from the family home. For so many here, there is grief, compounded by shock and disbelief. Among them, Leonie's aunt and a close friend.
I don't know how anyone can be so cruel to do this to her, because she wouldn't hurt anybody. She's a nice person, she's a lovely lass.
Leonie Weeks was 16 years old and was studying hair and beauty at college. Police won't comment on some local reports claiming that she disappeared after arranging to meet someone online. Forensic officers have sealed off the area where her body was found on a patch of land close to the shops near her home.
We're working very, very hard to gather as much evidence as we can. Unfortunately, and it's difficult for the family, these things do take a lot of time, but it's really, really important that we do it methodically, in a slow manner, and we have got specialist people that you can see that are working and helping us do that.
The body was found just before 11 o'clock yesterday morning, and it's emerged that only 20 minutes earlier police received a call to report that Leonie was missing. Today, news that an 18-year-old man had been arrested was followed by police activity at a house on the edge of Dinnington, near to Leonie's family home. For now, all anyone here can do is try to find their own way to understand what's happened and to say goodbye. Peter Lane, 5 News.
Coming up on 5 News, we meet the young royals tackling the stigma around mental health and how sometimes you can get too close to nature. We'll see you after the break. Hello and welcome back. You're watching 5 News. The man suspected of murdering 39 people in an Istanbul nightclub on New Year's Eve is in custody this evening. Turkish officials say he's from Uzbekistan, that he's confessed to the attack and his fingerprints match those at the scene. Toby Sadler reports.
He was Turkey's most wanted, on the run for 16 days. Police say he's confessed to the nightclub shooting. Named by officials as Abdulkadir Musharrapov, he was arrested at this flat in Istanbul. This alleged gunman for the so-called Islamic State enjoying a seemingly normal suburban lifestyle. A family man, it's reported his 4-year-old son was at home during the raid. But fingerprints found here are said to match those from the nightclub shooting. And alongside the everyday possessions, police say they found 2 guns, drones and $200,000 US. Turkey's Prime Minister announced the arrest, calling Musharrapov a vile terrorist. Another man and 3 women were also arrested at the same flat.
Of course, I felt very bad. Living in the same building with a person like that, being his next-door neighbour, it's a very bad situation.
We are scared. It sounds like a dream, a nightmare to me. He was actually very close to us, but we had no idea.
Abdul Kadir Musharrapov is alleged to have murdered 39 people at the Reyna nightclub in Istanbul in the early hours of New Year's Day. Police say this is him firing shots outside the club before shooting his way inside. During the attack, he reloaded his automatic rifle several times. The authorities allege Musharrapov entered Turkey illegally a year ago, seen here filming himself in Istanbul before the attack. That he's originally from Uzbekistan, trained in Afghanistan and has a wife and 2 children. It is an important arrest for Turkey, but hardly the end of their problems. 2016 saw several deadly terrorist attacks, and there is nothing to suggest the country is less of a target this year. Toby Sadler, 5 News.
Inquests into the deaths of 30 British tourists in a terror attack on a Tunisian beach have been told they may not have been sufficiently warned of the risks of travelling there. They were among 38 people who were shot dead in Sousse in 2015, months after another terrorist attack on the country. Layla Hayes reports.
These families want answers. And once again, they came to the Royal Courts of Justice today to hear evidence about what happened to their relatives in the Tunisia attack. 38 tourists died that day. 30 of them were British, aged between 19 and 80. They were all holidaymakers staying at the popular resort of Port El Kantoui near Sousse. Today it was revealed that a report produced for the British government 6 months before the attack raised concerns about security at beach entrances to around 30 hotels in the resort. Sefeddine Rezgui killed 10 of his victims on the beach before entering a luxury hotel. This 3D fly-through, compiled by police, shows the route he took through the Imperial Mahaba Hotel before he was shot dead. Images of victims superimposed where they were killed.
The inquest heard how at the time of the attack, the advice from the Foreign Office was that there was a high threat from terrorism and that attacks could occur in places visited by foreigners. Yet in spite of this, the Foreign Office did not advise against travelling to Tunisia or say specifically that tourists were a target.
Just 3 months before the beach attack, 20 tourists were killed at a museum in the capital Tunis. But a Foreign Office expert told the inquest it was very difficult to prove that tourists were being targeted. The lawyer for 20 of the families asked her, is there any initiative to force tour operators to tell travellers of the risk? Jane Marriott replied, they are told to direct them to a link to the Foreign Office advice. What about people not on the internet, he asked. Some of my clients were quite old. Some of the dead were quite old. Is that enough? Jane Marriott later said there was a telephone hotline, but that was discontinued in 2013. The primary source of information is the internet. The family's lawyer said some of the victims were told Tunisia was 100% safe. They simply want the truth. Layla Hayes, 5 News.
2017 can be a tipping point for mental health. The words of Prince William today, sharing a platform with his wife Kate and his brother Harry as they talked about their Heads Together campaign. They want a national conversation about mental health, taking it as seriously as physical health. I went to meet them.
It's the one cause all 3 young royals promote together. And ever since William, Kate and Harry launched their Heads Together campaign last year, they've talked about how important it is to reach out if you're struggling and that those conversations can be life-changing.
Talking to someone else is a positive and confident step to take. But for too long, it has been a case of keep quiet and carry on. As a result, too many people have suffered in silence.
If we succeed with this, we will have taken a powerful step in normalising mental health as an issue in our society, thinking about it as we do our own physical health.
The truth is, we can all help each other. You don't need any qualifications to help your mate out, simply to listen to what they have to say.
Afterwards, the royals talk privately about why they're so passionate about the cause. Heads Together is the charity of the year for the 2017 Virgin Money London Marathon, and it's their ambition to make it a mental health marathon. They can't run it for security reasons, so they've asked some of us to run it on their behalf. Well, how can you turn them down? Also on the team, John, who has a very personal reason for running.
I had suffered from depression and stress when I was younger, in my teenage years, and it really resonated with me that this was an important thing for me to run for Heads Together, and also then, I guess, kind of push that even further and talk publicly to people about what I've gone through, and actually talking can really make that difference. Harry set me a challenge on stage earlier about kind of going under 4 hours, so I don't know if that's possible now, but at least I've got to try and achieve that.
I'm there with you. I'll be running those long training runs with you in spirit.
Brilliant. Well, I look forward to seeing you at the finish line.
I think you'll be there before I am.
I don't know.
Thanks, John.
Okay, thanks, John.
Finally, the moment tourists on a nature trail in Florida got quite a shock. This was the alligator they encountered as they visited a wildlife reserve in Polk County. A 15-foot, 57-stone beast casually strolling across their path, slowly disappearing into the long grass. The gator is nicknamed by locals Humpback. I suppose that's what you get if you go to a wildlife park. Before we go, Matt's joined us to tell us what's coming up on 5 News tonight. Hello there.
I was shocked to hear you're doing the marathon again. Anyway, we've got the first of our special programmes at 6:30 on 5 News tonight, looking ahead to the inauguration of Donald Trump as American president. He takes power on Friday, and every evening we'll be looking at what the future could hold. We'll also be seeing if he's got anything at all in common with previous presidents. Alan will be speaking to the American novelist Lionel Shriver about him as well. Join me for Here Comes President Trump, a 5 News Tonight special at 6:30, Sean.
Look forward to that. Thanks, Matt. Claire Nazir has the weather next. I'll see you tomorrow at 5. Thanks for watching tonight. Bye for now.